Hi, I'm Paul Friedman, founder of the Marriage Foundation, and our discussion today is very important. 3 marriage mistakes you don't realize you're making. Welcome back. I'm Paul Friedman, founder of the Marriage Foundation, and the topic is really important because we're not very well educated about marriage, which is ironic because it's the number one thing almost everyone does, and we don't learn about it. So these are 3 mistakes that you don't realize you're making, and they're a big deal. So let's get into this, and let's get into it not just to name the mistakes, but to give you an understanding that marriage is actually a science. Why not? Why shouldn't it be? All science means is that it's explainable, cause and effect. So for everything that you do, if it's positive, it'll have a positive effect. If it's negative, it'll have a negative effect. And it doesn't begin on the outside. It begins on the inside because you don't want to be a phony in your marriage. So number 1, and this is a big deal. Now I should give you a little bit of background about myself so you have more of a context because I'm not a Western psychologist. They were my friends. They used to send me business because until 2001, I was a divorce mediator. So I was the one who assembled all of the details for a couple who wanted to get a divorce, but didn't want to go through having a lawyer on this side and a lawyer on that side. So they would come to me and we would lay out all their assets. We would talk about child sharing. We would talk about the logistics of a divorce. So everything was very precise, mathematical. And a couple asked me to help them save their marriage. Why not? I was a divorce mediator, which means I was good at communication. In those days, before 2000 and even up to 2001, communication was thought to be like the underlying problem in all bad marriages. And I can't argue that. It is one of the underlying problems. But this problem is a much bigger problem, and that is anger. We don't realize because it's so normal to be angry, isn't it? It's so normal to encounter anger. It's so normal to have to work around people's anger, especially your soulmates, especially your partner. And they have to work around your anger too. And we're not taught this very, very basic error, which is expressing anger is not a necessity. It's not something that is of value to your marriage. Most important, anger is not something we have to live with. Anger is literally something that we can do much more than manage. We can eliminate it, entirely eliminate it from ourselves. Now, we can't eliminate it with our spouse. So what we need to do is kind of a 2-pronged effect. One side of it is dealing with our own anger, which means working towards elimination of it. And it's possible. I'm going to get into that in a couple minutes here. But the other part is working with your spouse's anger. So I'm going to give you techniques. Now, these techniques are also included among many more in the online courses that we have. We have one for men and one for women. It's a 12-week course. And even though it's a 12-week course, everyone refers to it for many years. And it includes interactions with our very well-trained marriage counselors, TMF trained. The Marriage Foundation is TMF. And so this is a highest priority for you. So let me explain why it's possible. Because we're taught that you could manage your anger, but we're not taught we could eliminate it. So let's get an understanding of what anger is and what it isn't. We could say it's an emotion, that's fine, but it is not a part of us unless we accept it and embrace it as part of us. Now, for men, it's a much bigger problem, although the number of women who take our course because they can't get rid of their anger, very high number. So it's not restricted by gender, but here's how anger works. We go back to the biological scientific explanation of self-preservation. We know, and it doesn't require studies, it's mathematic equation, it's cause and effect, that every single cell, every single living cell is imbued with the drive to survive, self-preservation. We're taught this in middle school, but we don't learn about that in ourselves, ironically. We're not taught, and kids, you also are run by your self-preservation that is in every one of your trillions of cells. Now, what happens is self-preservation manifests in many ways, but it's all about self. So it is a selfish when it manifests in our mind and in our behavior. It's selfish. But anger is a very interesting attribute of self-preservation because it's used by our bodies to tell our minds, and this is an extreme, but it's real. It tells our minds, hey, danger, danger, danger. Everything else doesn't matter anymore. You don't have to think. You don't have to discuss. You have to focus your attention on destroying your perceived enemy. And that's what anger is all about. It's about taking care of yourself offensively. In other words, we've all heard the expression, the best defense is a good offense. This is the embodiment of that phrase. So anger is pushing away anything and everything that is coming at us. Because our mind, our subconscious mind, has determined, not we, but our subconscious mind has determined that we're in danger. So what happens? The anger, remember what I said, pushes away. Well, isn't that the opposite of what you want to happen in your marriage? Now, some people say, yeah, but sometimes he or she is getting into my space and I need my space. Da, 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 da. No, that's a misunderstanding of what marriage is all about. You share a space in marriage. It's a unique venue. It's a very unique system, marriage is. And when we learn how to share our space with love as the undercurrent, then the idea of pushing our spouse away is abhorrent. It doesn't really fit. It doesn't work. So what we need to do when we are feeling anger, well, there's degrees of what we should do. Number one, never, ever express anger. Never let it out. Never yell at your spouse. Never talk down to your spouse. Never shun your spouse. Never grimace at your spouse. Don't give them dirty looks. Don't give them the cold shoulder. Don't run off and be mad. Stop your mind from allowing those things to take place. How? Well, we're all gifted with this amazing thing called free will. And when we use our free will as it's intended to be used to create happiness, which marriage is all about creating happiness, then what we do is we put that free will into action. We turn our free will into the volition, into the effort to control the mind and not be angry. When you practice this elimination of anger, and we get into this quite a bit in the online courses because it's a very critical part. When you learn how to do this, it creates a space of happiness. So anger pushes away, love embraces. Just remember that. And that will really help you. Okay? So this is the number one mistake that most people make in their marriage, is they allow themselves to be angry. They go, well, that's me. I have a right to express my anger. Sure, you have a right to do everything you want, but don't you want to have happiness, peace, and harmony and love in your marriage? So that's why we need to eliminate these things, these mistakes, because they harm your marriage. They harm your relationship. Remember, marriage means union. You don't want to disrupt that union with petty anger, and it's all petty, because we always get angry over stupid things, don't we? Okay, number two. This is another mistake that is almost universal in its practice. And it gets that way again. It's not your fault. You're guilty of it. It's not your fault because we're not educated about marriage. We don't go to marriage school. We're not taught about marriage in middle school and in high school, where we should be learning all about marriage. So this second mistake is the mistake of correcting our spouse. Now, why is it a mistake? And I'm not talking about saying, oh, honey, let me turn the flame down a little bit. I think it'll work out better. The eggs will come out better. I'm not talking about that kind of correcting. I'm talking about, what are you, stupid? This is not how you do it. You do it like this. That's not loving, is it? Correcting is setting up a different kind of relationship with your spouse than is intended. What's intended is, and everyone knows this, we're supposed to be equal. Well, you're not equal if you're correcting your spouse. And we don't want this inequality, because what it does is it interferes with the bridges of connection, because those bridges are very subtle. They're love. And they're easily overshadowed by misbehavior. It just came to me that I didn't tell you what to do with anger. So I'm going to go back, pardon me, and say what to do if your spouse is angry at you all the time. I'm going to give you a technique. I promised you a technique. So this is called, and I didn't invent this technique. My psychologist friend Yanon taught me this technique, and I think his father, who was a psychologist, who was the head of a huge school of psychology in Israel, I think he may have been the one who started this. It's called the bowling ball feather technique. And how it works is this. Imagine, if you will, a bowling ball heading towards a feather. You've let go of the feather, someone threw a bowling ball at it, and that feather is not going to be touched, because it will be gently moved by the wind caused by the coming bowling ball. Now, you are the feather. And so you just have to think, okay, I'm a feather, and I'm not going to take this personally. I'm a feather. I'm very light. I'm floating, and this bowling ball is not going to hurt me. So that's the technique. Now, the technique for controlling the anger, if you're the one who's angry, and again, it's so extensive. This is just a very valuable technique, but it's not thorough. There's a lot of steps to eliminating your anger. So as soon as you feel anger, and anger is always associated with a physical response within your body. So as soon as you feel that, just stop everything. Everything. Even if you're in the middle of a discussion, no arguing, you're in the middle of a discussion, just stop and calm yourself down. I'm living with my soulmate. They deserve only goodness and love from me. That's what I promised, and that's what I'll give them. Okay, so those are the techniques. Now, coming back to correcting your partner. I've never done this before in a video where I've gone back, but it came to me, so God was letting me know to tell you. Never correct your partner. You don't like it when you're being corrected, don't correct your partner. If you're being corrected, be the feather. Be the feather. This technique works universally in all sorts of situations. Okay, number 3. This is a big one. So I just want to let you know that these didn't just fall out of the sky. After my first couple asked me to help them save their marriage, and I spoke to my friends who were marriage counselors, and they had their opinion of how to save marriages, but I was ending a lot of the couples. In fact, they became, again, they would send me business of couples who they really couldn't help. It was out of their capacity. And so I would save their marriages. And I had to create a whole new science. I did this over the course of 8 years, working with individuals, very differently than what you would imagine it would be like. It wasn't like working with a normal therapist. I wouldn't sit down and go, okay, tell me what's wrong. How do you feel? How did that make you feel? I don't do any of that. And we don't do any of that in our training. And we train marriage counselors if you want to be one. It's an online course, very inexpensive. And my books don't reflect Western psychological ideas either. Actually, moving into number 3 with all of this, I have 2 books, Lessons for Happy Marriage and Breaking the Cycle. And you could check them out on Amazon, see how they've been doing for 10 or 15 years. See what kind of responses we get. So the underlying about marriage, which is never discussed, is why we got married in the first place. You met your soulmate. Now, this was an intriguing question for me way back in the beginning, because if I'm going to help a couple with their marriage, I want to know, well, what is it that you want out of your marriage? Why did you get married in the first place? And when I asked people, everyone said the same thing. I got married because I fell in love. Everyone. It's rare that someone says, well, I got corralled into it, It happens, but it's rare. And I thought, yeah, we fall in love, but why do we get married? It's a different question. And it took me a while, prayed about it, meditated on it, and I got the answer. Not from another person, I got the answer from He who created us. We get married to be happy. And I thought, okay, that's it. It's true. We want to be happier than we are. Now, it doesn't ever hardly turn out that way because we're not taught how to be married. So it's like being handed the keys to a Maserati. Most people, if they have no driver's education, they're going to destroy that car, wrap it around a tree. I made the mistake of, I had a Jag. It was not a brand new one. It was an older model, but I gave it to my son when he turned 18 for his 18th birthday. He destroyed it within 6 months. It just wasn't my Jag anymore. We need to learn how to be married. So yes, we get married to be happy, to be happier, but we have to learn how to be married. And we have to remember why we got married. We should never lose sight of that. Because when we got married, we made promises to our newfound soulmate that we would love them, that we would adore them, that we would put them ahead of ourselves. Just that one little thing, putting them ahead of ourselves. Is that what you're doing? I doubt it. When I was a divorce mediator, I certainly didn't ever see that, but even when I was helping people with their marriage, rarely, if I asked that question, do you put your husband? Do you put your wife ahead of yourself? The answer was universally no. No one does. But you promised to do that. And you can say, well, yeah, but things change. Yeah, what changes is we forget why we got married. Because the very nature of love, and this is very deep, okay? This is very deep. So you're going to learn something here that you are going to say, yeah, that's common sense. And you need to apply it to your marriage. We all know the one universal thing that creates happiness. And that's the point of all this. That's the point of marriage. It's love. Love creates happiness. And it's sort of like light and dark. If you have a dark room and you have a candle, there's no more darkness. It's gone. If you have the darkness of sadness, the darkness of worry, the darkness of what am I going to do with my life, and you bring in the light of love, those are dissipated. Because love is one of the primary attributes of God. And we are souls. This is not a religious discussion. It's just the way it is. We're souls. We have a mind, we have a body, but essentially we're spiritual, we're souls. And that love can also be scientifically approached. We can't produce love. There's only one who produces love, and that's God. And when we're given love, this is something you should bear in mind, we rarely feel it because our mind, going back to the drive to survive, that self-preservation, filters everything and is wondering, am I getting conned here? What do they want? As a filter. Can't get rid of that filter. But you can deceive the filter by giving love. When you give love by willpower, by your volition, then that love of God breathes slowly through you and you feel love in all the measure of your own capacity. Which, by the way, as you practice that capacity grows. It's very beautiful. Maybe I explain it better in the online course, but I think you get it. So the mistake that we make, that we should never make, is we forget why we got married. Because even if you remember, well, I got married to give love to my soulmate with all my heart, mind, and strength, then your marriage is going to be amazing. And you'll undo any harm. I hope this has helped you. And we're here for you at the Marriage Foundation. Visit our website, take a look, see what all we have to offer you. And if you have a question, you could put something in the comment section and I'll respond to it, or you could write to one of our counselors. Ask a counselor and they'll get back to you, and we're here to help you. So again, I'm Paul Friedman. I founded the Marriage Foundation. God bless you. Thank you, and take care.